So we're just about to start Talkaoke. Come and have a seat, come and get involved. Everyone's welcome. You don't have to have a snake or any other animal to take part. Come and have a seat, come and get involved. So this is Talkaoke. It's a pop-up talk show. We don't know what we're going to talk about today, but...
This one's going to be about Vivienne Westwood, and we've got Liz is going to sit down with you.
What do you mean it's going to be about Vivienne Westwood?
Will we need clothes in virtual reality?
What's that got to do with Vivienne Westwood?
That's what she said.
Oh, right, okay. Is she worried that she's going to be out of business? Okay, fair enough. I would say this is a historic moment because it's the first time we've kind of got a telepresent member of... Come a bit closer. Come closer, about 30 centimetres if you can. Don't fall over though like you did last. Stop. Whoa, all right. You're getting a little bit too enthusiastic. Tell us what your name is.
It's Carl.
Carl, welcome.
Yeah, get better sound. Have you got good sound?
Oh, yeah, we can hear that, can't we? Okay, so have a parking space. Everyone else have a seat. Come and sit down. We don't know what we're going to talk about. It could be something to do with Vivienne Westwood and clothes. In virtual reality, do we need clothes? Can we go further than clothes?
Can I ask, I know the name, I don't actually know who Vivienne Westwood is. I know vaguely that she's someone in a creative world, but...
She's a designer, I believe.
Okay, a designer. Okay, there we go. Vivienne Westwood, designer. Do you know who Vivienne Westwood is? No, she's a designer. Anyway, more important than Vivienne Westwood are the people and presences around this table. So let's find out who they are and what they do. So I'm going to start off over here. What's your name?
Apple Tart.
Apple Tart, welcome. And what's your name again? That's you. What's your name? Slight satellite delay there. We'll come back to you.
Rebecca.
Yep.
Saskia.
Rebecca and Saskia, yep.
I'm Jerry.
Jerry, welcome.
Rowan.
And what's your name?
Inish.
Inish, welcome. Come and have a seat, come and get involved in this. And what's your name again?
It's Carl. Carl.
Can everyone hear that? Is this the speaker, this bit here? Yeah, okay. Who's in control? Can someone turn up the volume on this? Is it Max? Anyway, so this is Talkaoke. It's a pop-up talk show. Everyone's welcome. We've got a new face. What's your name?
Hello, Hercules.
Hercules, welcome. What do we want to talk about? Come and have a seat. Anyone got anything they would like to talk about?
Were we here to talk about what Vivienne Westwood said? She said the imagination is the most erotic place.
Okay.
That's what I read on the sheet. That's why I'm here. To talk about that.
Does anyone else really... I've got a feeling that only two people around the table know who Vivienne Westwood is. Do you want to talk about the imagination is the most erotic place? No. So we might have to sort of somehow segue and link this into some other subjects. We've also got a telepresent robot. Do you know what I mean? Look at it from my point of view. Do you know what I mean? How can we link these subjects together? Maybe we should just talk about the imagination at large. What do you think about the imagination? Have you got an imagination? No?
No.
You haven't? Have you got an imagination?
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah. Have you got an imagination?
Yeah.
Okay. What have you got that you haven't got?
I've got. He has an imagination I haven't.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Tell you something.
Yeah.
Imagination is more important than knowledge. Do you know who said that?
Was it Vivienne Westwood again?
Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagination is more important than knowledge.
Would Albert Einstein? Do you know who Albert Einstein is?
Yeah, he's a really clever person.
Yeah. Why?
Because he found it was MC squared.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was mass squared, I think.
Mass times c squared, whatever c is.
Speed of light.
Speed of light. Oh, there we go. So, okay, so Albert Einstein, really clever person. What about Vivienne Westwood? She a clever person?
I think she's a clever person in her own right. Yeah. She's.
What would the conversation between Albert Einstein and Vivienne Westwood be like? Yeah.
I reckon she might have something to say about his hair.
Really? Okay.
Like it.
She might, yeah.
Yeah.
She might like it.
Okay. Do you know? So I'm not quite sure where we want to go. We've got three things on the table as far as I see it. We've got Albert Einstein. We've got the imagination, which connects Albert Einstein and Vivienne Westwood.
The speed of light, is that the same speed as imagination?
Okay.
Let's go
What's
there.
the speed of imagination?
I don't know. Let's talk about that.
What's the speed of imagination? Is it the speed of light?
How do you measure the speed of imagination?
I don't know. I have no
Okay. Any ideas? I'm going to turn the mirror onto you, Apple Tart. How would you measure?
This is my question to you. How would you measure imagination if you had to imagine it or make it up? How would you measure it?
I'll come to you in a second.
I don't have an answer for how do you measure the speed of imagination, but you can kind of see how quickly it takes to turn your own imagination into something real. So, like, thousands of years ago, we were whittling stuff from wood. That took a long time. Then we had, like, machine pressing stuff out. Now we've got 3D printers that can turn your imagination into something physical in seconds. So the speed of imagination as a process is becoming quicker, but you can't put numbers on it, I reckon.
Okay, so the speed of turning imagination into something real has certainly improved.
You could measure it.
Rebecca.
You could imagine it how weird it is. If it's if I just see an elephant there, then it will just be normal. But if I see a dragon or something, then that will be bigger than just seeing an elephant or something.
Okay, so the imagination gets larger the weirder it becomes. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so elephant, everyone can imagine an elephant. Can you imagine a dragon? Can you imagine a dragon with 80 heads? The weirder we get, the more the imagination.
80 is okay. 81 I think is ridiculous.
Okay, 81. Is it harder to imagine a dragon with 81 heads?
Oh, definitely. 80 makes complete sense. I think that's fairly normal. 81, no, just...
No way. Okay.
I think we can, if we're going to go into this, maybe put it on a par with the internet. It's kind of infinite, no? That's
Is
like
it
imagination,
the internet,
right?
a dragon with 80 heads or 81 heads?
The possibilities there for that to be created virtually, no? In virtual reality.
Okay, so
No?
the possibility exists.
Just putting it out there.
Anything you can imagine. Can you create anything that you can imagine these days? You say yes.
Because Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it.
Oh, so now we've got Walt Disney into the mix. We've had Albert Einstein, Vivienne Westwood, now we've got Walt Disney. If you can dream it, you can do it. But what does that mean?
Because when he was younger, he wanted to have a big film company, and now he's got a big film company.
Okay, so...
And basically what he's saying is you've got to come up with the idea first, haven't you? And if we go back to Einstein's quote, we create all kinds of amazing things, but you've got to have the imagination to think of them first.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then you're stuck. I always say that people debate humans against robots in space, and I say, yeah, so robots have made amazing discoveries out in space, but none of them has ever come back and stood in front of an audience and told them about their experiences.
Right. You think that's a bit of a flaw in the robot design?
No. I mean, obviously they're made to do different things, but
I mean, why don't robots come and talk about their experience?
They're not built with imagination.
Okay. So what do other people think? Do robots have imaginations? Can robots come and give talks? We had a robot here, but the robot just went off. It was not that bothered about this conversation, so maybe you're right. Yeah.
I think imagination, the birth of things can come in times of need. You have to, if you kind of get to a point where it's a necessary thing to create because you need it for survival, then it will be born. So I think that, at cruxes, certainly in points of history, that's when the most kind of pushes of imagination has been seen.
So necessity is the mother of invention.
Well, in political crisis, and in wars, you really see kind of a height of imagination come to the surface at those points because new direction is needed.
Hang on a sec, sorry, Apple Tart.
That's all right.
Rebecca, Saskia, let me get a final thought from you if you're going to go. Let's have a final thought.
I'd probably say to sum the whole thing imagination up, there's kind of no limit to it. Like you can imagine whatever you want. If you want to do it, you can do it.
Okay, there's truly no limit to imagination.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Final thought. Have you heard anything new whilst you've been sitting on the Talkaoke table that you've thought, oh, that's interesting?
Sums this conversation up, basically.
You haven't? You're not that bothered with it? What should we be talking about, do you think?
I don't know.
Okay, but that's one of the things about the imagine. We need to imagine these things.
That's a great way to finish. Look, can't go anywhere because there's no kind of space for thought. So that's actually a really good full stop to finish with. I think that's very well done.
You need to not know to be able to come up with a new thing. We got a new face to the table. What's your name?
Suzanne.
Okay, we've got Apple Tart, we've got Hercules, Inesh, Rowan, we've got Peter. Jerry, sorry.
Close. Dave.
Yep, it's a name, but it was the wrong one. What's your name? Dave and...
Anton.
And?
Anton.
Anton. Did I ask you your name before? If I did, I completely forgot. Sorry about that. Okay, anyway, so where are we going to go with this conversation? Do we want to talk about this empty space where we don't know, where the imagination hasn't entered yet? Do we want to talk about the conversation that Albert Einstein might have with Vivienne Westwood and Walt Disney? Do we want to talk about something else? Where do we want to go with this? Let's go.
One thing I'd quite like to ask people is is it possible that something could exist that can't be imagined? Is there like a boundary to the imagination?
Okay, so is there a place that the imagination is just not ready to go or can't get to?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think ignorance is bliss. So I think if you don't know, you're kind of in a very safe place. If you do know, you're in a dangerous place.
Knowledge can be dangerous.
So I mean, maybe not dangerous, but you're protected from otherwise, aren't you? So I think the same can be. You can see it. We're so far aware of how humans interact with one another, far more to how, well, as far as I know, how a dog would react to the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're taking it in different ways.
Can we see the world through a dog's eyes?
I don't know. Can we?
And can we understand what the dog's imagination is?
Do they have an imagination? Do dogs have an imagination?
Yeah.
You can imagine, you can understand
you can imagine what a dog's imagination might be. What would a dog's imagination be
Well,
like?
you don't really know if you are imagining it or not, but...
Anton, what would a dog's imagination be like?
They're probably thinking that humans are crazy.
Yeah. Why were they thinking that humans are crazy?
Because they...
What crazy things do they observe that humans doing?
They kill each other.
Okay.
For no reason.
But what about dogs? Do dogs not do that?
They don't do it.
Okay, so... Yeah.
So some dogs must get very confused as to why when they leave a present on the grass, a human comes along and picks it up sometimes. Isn't that a bit weird?
Well, they might think it's a bit strange when they...
When you're picking up a dog turd after your pet.
Okay.
Just
Do they
they must think that. I mean, wouldn't you think it's strange if some equivalent situation happened to you?
What you mean if you were like... Does it happen?
It does happen. People drop litter and it miraculously disappears the next day.
So,
We're all dogs pooping.
Okay, so it does happen. Do we think it's weird? Are we maybe looking at things through a dog's eyes suddenly gives that kind of weirdness effect that we can suddenly see things in a fresh way? We've got a new face to the table. What's your name?
I'm Brian.
Brian, we got Suzanne, we got Anton, what's that? Dave. Yeah, we got Dave, we got Jerry, and we got Rowan, Inesh, Hercules. Have you fallen asleep? No. Apple Tart. And I'm Mikey. And is this person going to come? No, they're not. We've got 2 spare seats. So if anyone wants to come and sit down and join in this fascinating conversation about imagination, what's a dog's imagination like? Please do come and tell us on the table of chat. That's what we're talking about.
Now, here's the thing. Is there something that we can't imagine? And coming back to dogs only see in black and white.
No way.
Yeah. So that suggests that a dog can't imagine colour. So there's an example of being unable to imagine something because you just have no experience of it.
Okay. Hang on.
You can't imagine what you can't imagine, though, can you?
Can you imagine what you can't imagine?
But then you'd imagine it, wouldn't you? And then it's no longer something you can't imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are people who are colorblind, like Neil Harbison. Well,
You're colorblind.
But Neil Harbison is actually, he only sees it in black and white.
Yeah.
And he experiences color through sound.
Yeah.
So each color.
How does he do that?
So he's got a camera with a sensor that senses the color value, and that color value translates into sound waves that then kind of vibrates on his skull, so he hears the sound. Sounds of color.
Okay. Could he have imagined that before talking to other people about color?
Well, the color sounds of color are theoretical. I mean, it's devised by some therapists to kind of reflect what each color kind of values are. But eventually, after 2 years of him wearing that device, he actually started to dream in color.
Right.
But I mean, not the way we dream about color, but in terms of he would dream as those vibrations of sound for the color.
Okay. What were you going to say, Apple Tart? Back then, when we were talking about the limits of the imagination and dogs' imaginations and dogs only seeing in black and white.
Oh yeah, no, it was. Well, you know, when you're creating a piece of artwork and you have got a set of materials, for example, set out in front of you. If you've got a camera film, right? If you're using black and white camera film, or if you're using color camera film, you're restricted to a point with that film that you're using. You can't go any further than that, right? Because of the medium that you're using. So I think the same accounts to, education really. If you're educated so much in one specific direction, that's what you can use as your ammunition,
as
if
your
you
palette.
like. Right? As your palette. That's that's a nicer phrase. Thank you. So I think it's kind of, I think it kind of works on a par with that, really.
Yeah. Okay, so it's about what your palette is. Can you expand your palette? Do you know what film is? Have you seen like a photographic film? Yeah, go, just checking, because it's like 2017. Everything's so digital. So we're talking about expand. Can you expand your imaginative palette? That's what we're talking about now. Is it possible to expand the palette of your imagination beyond simple colours? Brian,
I mean, dogs. I was just looking at this new book that's come out, the Homo Sapiens, and it says that dogs have been the friends of man and woman for something like 15 or 50,000 years.
Yeah, a long time.
And it's always with love.
Yeah.
And can you imagine that if you just only saw with love?
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. What would that look? Seeing with love. How?
Dogs are totally in love with us.
Okay.
They love human beings.
Speak for
and
yourself.
Well, imagine that is the only way you know.
Yeah.
Is you're just in love all the time.
All right. Is that really true about dogs? Yeah.
Just does that mean that every time a dog bites someone, it's a love bite? I mean, the victims would probably disagree.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to add to the idea of, can you extend the colour palette? People classically, Heinrich Kluwer in the 1920s experimenting with mescaline, discovered that people talk about Martian colours, like colours from they'd never seen in the palette before. And I've been doing research with people on DMT, seeing extra-dimensional percepts, so seeing things with more than 3 spatial dimensions. So maybe it is possible through altered states, for instance.
Through sensors, like even Neil Arbison, he can actually see color value infrared or ultraviolet, the colors that we don't see, because he can experience that in sound waves, and he, so it's possible to extend our sensory vision, if you like, to be able to see more color. Or more color.
Also, dogs have incredible hearing, and I was just reading yet again, only 2 days ago, Tesla could actually hear things 3 streets away.
Really? So Tesla. Because we've had Walt Disney, we've had Albert Einstein, we've had Vivienne Westwood. Who's Tesla?
Tesla was he created Well, who knows the best about it?
Okay. Anything you might? I've got a feeling you might know something about Tesla. Do you know?
He was like a Victorian inventor of sorts, like Edison's contemporary, like guy who invented kind of a lot of electric products. Light bulb, or took credit for the light bulb and things like that.
Invented the light bulb?
Tesla gave us things like alternating current, so we could transfer electricity long distances and so on. He was quite an eccentric chap. He had a lot of peculiar things about him, and it's probably one of those manifestations that his mind worked differently because he could perhaps had super hearing or vice versa.
There's a question in the air that what is the relationship between these extrasensory senses and the imagination? Is there a relationship between seeing the world differently and imagination, or hearing the world differently, or smelling the world differently? In the case of Ratatouille, the animated film.
Everyone sees the world differently anyway. I don't think we have a common sort of way of looking at everything.
Could you explain one way that you see the world differently to the
Well, I mean,
the norm?
when one art, like if you're a painter, you draw things the way that you see it. It's like it's very personal way of looking at things. It's to do with the experiences that the medium you use. And the way you express those through the medium.
Okay, so everyone sees the world differently anyway. Is that just artists though, or is it everyone in general? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think artists should ever be put on some pedestal to how they're looking and engaging with the world. I think it's a complete equilibrium going on, just in terms of how people can engage with the world and want to engage with the world. An artist's job is just to produce what they what they can see as as an object, as a reflection. People who don't turn themselves. I feel like that generally speaking, everyone has got the artist's capability because it is taking in information and projecting out in another way.
So the artist is not doing anything particularly special or unique. They're just...
No, I think it's a more concentrated focus of the imagination, which is then being turned into an object and then termed a piece of art, and then someone will come along and put a price tag on it. Oh, you're an artist. It's not.
So you're just doing something human in a way.
It's human. It's human psychology.
Yeah.
With a price tag put on it these days. Yeah.
Okay, hang on a sec, Brian, because David wants to...
just like non-neurotypical, this is kind of an idea that there is some kind of normal, right, but that everyone perceives, like you say, in different ways. So some example, non-neurotypical ways of perceiving the world, synesthesia, so mixing of the senses, or some people have visual snow, they see everything pixelated. Some people have no visual imagination whatsoever. There's many different ways in which, who here has visual imagination? If you close your eyes, you can imagine an elephant, right? Some people don't have that at all. So, you think that the way you perceive the world is how you perceive it, but it isn't.
Is there any such a thing as neurotypical then?
Only for neuroscientists.
Okay. All right. So, Brian, what were you going to say?
Yeah, but like Herc says, everybody's got a sort of perception. Somebody will sit here and they'll suddenly see 8 geeks, or they'll see 2 women, or they will see certain ages. And I'm a cartoonist, so I see everything in cartoon.
Yeah.
And so each of us has our own special perception.
Well, can you just tell us a little bit about seeing everything before we go to Rowan? What does it mean? Give us a concrete example of how seeing...
Everything's a cartoon.
Yeah, but how...
every bit of life, I cannot walk through any space without being aware of each person as a character.
Yeah.
And it's like living a constant Pixar or SpongeBob movie.
It's like a comic strip then?
All the time.
Yeah, okay.
And in my job, there's no division in the day and the night between that. That is the way I experience life.
Yeah.
And so, as you pick, if somebody's a musician, I've not got the same musical sense, they will hear the music all the time in absolutely everything. And I've seen some films on YouTube where people could turn anything into a musical instrument. That glass, this table, and you've got 6 musicians in the room, and they're playing everything.
Okay.
So we each have a perception, and the imagination, is it imagination or just our reality? I call it our reality.
Okay, interesting, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was going to mention the music thing specifically because I don't play any musical instrument, but I'm a very musical person. And every time I'm on a bus or a train or something, it just turns into music. I just infer beats and sort of start in my mind constructing rhythms over the top of it. And I have no way of getting it out, but it's there. But also, what I wanted to say was your jacket is covered in monkeys, and can anyone else see that? The dark patterns just look like monkeys.
What have you been taking?
Nothing. Chewing gum.
Okay, so...
I just thought someone else might share that on the topic of synesthesia, that's all.
What's
I'm being quiet.
Okay. Okay, so where do we want to go with this? We've all got this own unique perception. There's no such thing as neurotypical apart from to neuroscientists. But what is our own imaginative, perceptive norm? And how does it inform our world and our imagination? That's the question on the table right now.
It is everything. It is your reality, as this man said. It is your reality, your perception. But I think once you realise that actually there is no normal and other people perceive the world in different ways, then that opens up possibility of expanding imagination and perception and experience, no?
Is there a way... Oh, go.
To lead on from that, I think where we can kind of form some kind of... I think it comes down to empathy. And how we relate to one another to kind of create a reality that we can share with one another or do choose to share with one another. I think it just comes down to one's own empathy and others, really.
Could we do this better, sharing our realities better? I mean, I guess the first step is to appreciate my reality is not the same as your reality, which I think we just generally assume that it is. I certainly do, and I'd apologise for that because I don't see the world in cartoons or hear it in music.
Oh, you don't at the moment yet, but this is the thing. You don't this second until suddenly somebody says it, and then suddenly you see it. You either see it or you don't. So our imagination is triggered by who we're with, what we experience, where we focus, and it does split immediately. Like, everybody got it straight away, and for a split second, they saw in cartoon, or we see in music, or we see like a dog. It's like a word. I've also done workshops and things, or experiences where you shift reality. Sometimes you use time. You start by doing something like this, round a circle, and you do it at midnight, and you do it for 24 hours or 48 hours, or you do it with people taking drugs or drink or something, or all getting naked. It does it all, fantastic music. It shifts. The shift takes only, it's fractional. We all have the keys of magic.
Okay.
Through conversation.
Okay, so it's in a way it's the ideas, it's the concepts that allow us to shift and to allow us to go to these different places, the conversations, the communication of these different possible worlds, which is all the same.
I think Apple touched on it. Like communication, I think, and empathy is key because, like, if you are afraid to talk about your own perceptions, you're never going to be understood. And I think there's a bit of a stigma about saying something in case you feel weird. Like the monkeys thing. Like everyone sort of like giggled, but I see monkeys, and it's there. I think if more people just opened up and communicated about the way their perceptions are unique to them, maybe that people would understand each other a little bit better in certain ways, anyway.
Okay, we've got a new face to the table. We've got David, we've got Jerry, we've got Rowan, we've got Inesh. What's your name?
Mamading.
Mamading. And we've got Apple or Apple Tart. What's better? Either. We've got Brian, we've got Suzanne, and come and join in. And you. We're talking about imagination. We're talking about how does it out. David mentioned neurotypical, this idea of neurotypical. But then it turned out that the only people that are really interested in neurotypical are neuroscientists. We've all got our own reality, our own unique way of seeing things. And that is key to how our imagination flourishes. So, for example, Brian sees the world in cartoons. Rowan hears sounds as it could be being on the bus, it could be the washing machine, it's the rhythm, it's whatever. And we've all of these ways we've got of perceiving the world inform our imaginations in a direction, and that's what we're talking about at the moment. But can we communicate those different ways of perceiving the world? And that's where we are right now. Okay, you've kind of dived deep into quite a deep. So I'll let you sort of kind of decompress or recompress. But obviously, as you know, grab the mic whenever, as and when you would want to.
David mentioned something very interesting, which I'd seen a number of years ago. I actually saw Terence McKenna speak, and he talked about DMT, and he said the thing about it was that immediately, anybody who took it was transformed into a shamanistic experience, into a completely different reality. However, if you've got the expectation, if you had an expectation that you just sucked on a piece of this card, that you were in an alternate reality, and if the right person said it to you, each, maybe with the exception of maybe only one or two, would have a DMT experience.
Right. So it's actually our imagination that's the powerhouse of this.
There's no such thing as a placebo. Everything that we experience is like a placebo. It's beyond placebo. It actually changes us.
Yeah.
The minute we think of it, because we've got this extraordinary brain of consciousness.
Okay. Let's bring Mamading into. You haven't said anything yet.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that the brain is this amazing receptive organ, which is constantly trying to process and make sense of the world and of our experiences, and it can do that in amazing ways. This needs to be triggered.
Mamading, do you agree or disagree with that? It sounds like that's the way you see.
Yeah, it totally fits in my way of seeing things. I mean, the thing I would add to that is that an important way in terms of how we interpret the world is kind of our own personal narratives about how the world and the universe is,
right?
Which then helps filter and shape those experiences.
So it's not just about the perception; it's also about the narrative that you've sort of created this far.
Yes.
That informs how you add extra new experiences.
Exactly. That's informed by our life experiences, maybe traumas, all sorts of stuff, education, you name it.
Okay, interesting. So the narrative, what do people get what Mamading's saying, that it's not just about what's happening now, but what has happened previously in the entire rest of your life?
I think so. I think I agree, because it's like some people can draw correlations where none exist, because the previous 5 times they got an A, they kissed a lucky rabbit's foot. I know it's kind of a bit of a cliche, but they're worried that if they stop that, they will no longer get A's, even though obviously it's extremely unlikely there's any correlation between the two events, but people draw conclusions because of their experiences.
Yeah, like I'm wearing my lucky pants today.
Let's not go there. But,
you call that apophenia, which is the tendency to find patterns in seemingly meaningless data. But how do we know it's meaningless? How do we know the universe isn't communicating something to us? I kind of like.
Would the universe be communicating through my pants?
It could well be communicating through your pants. Yeah, the lucky pants. It could well be.
There are more things in heaven and earth.
But I mean, is it the universe? Is it our tendency to see patterns? What is this story that we're telling about ourselves and our?
Yeah, I think it's like recognition, and if you recognise something, then you're going to be more inclined to kind of giving it your time, I guess, I'd assume, or maybe not giving it your time. But going on to the memory thing and talking about advertising, how Coca-Cola managed to create a red Santa Claus when Santa Claus wasn't originally red. I think that's a perfect example. You know, it's I don't want to call it brainwashing.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it brainwashing, but it's a perfect example of repeating something so many times that then it becomes that thing. It's like, say you're walking to work every morning, and you see the same person sitting on a street bench every day. You build up that expectation to see that person there, and that becomes part of your routine. And then one day you go to work and then the person's not there. Then it's kind of like it's a bit jarring. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's another example of like that pattern kind of thing, and it's setting it in stone in the mind.
So that pattern sets an expectation.
It also sets like precedent for like false memories and things. The example I was going to bring up was like everyone kind of remembers what they were doing on September the 11th, 2001, and everyone says they remember seeing the first tower fall, but no one does, because it wasn't recorded, it wasn't broadcast live, it was only recorded. The first tower, the footage of it was only recorded, not broadcast. It was the second tower that everyone saw fall, but everyone remembers seeing the first tower fall, because that's what that was the bigger impact. But it wasn't broadcast, but everyone remembers it, or a lot of people do.
Okay.
So it's like a false memories.
Reality and memory are kind of co-created. They're not, what's objective? I mean, there isn't any objectivity, is it? It's just kind of a collective subjective illusion.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so if you take that on board about the co-creation, then in a sense we're all responsible and we all contribute. Then it's like, okay, what are we responsible for? How are we contributing? How can we actually make things better? Especially when we look around and see things that we don't like. What are we going to do about them?
I mean, are we responsible? Do you feel responsible for these kind of, in a way, these myths, these ideas, these perceptions that come out in our world?
Personally, yes, because this is my own perception, but I sort of feel like maybe I actually have some ability in terms of metaphor and storytelling narrative. I'm not really bringing it to the fore and actually trying to help be part of the solution and contributing positive stories and positive narratives. So that's something I see that I need to do. I'm not necessarily saying that other people should have that issue or challenge, but it's something that's alive for me.
Okay.
I had one funny thought when Apple said about brainwashing, and I suddenly thought, are we on fast cycle or slow cycle, or only doing nylons? You know, where are we in the brainwashing cycle?
Okay. I mean, and is it a high temperature wash, or is it just a low temperature cool wash?
I think it's 90 degrees with full bleach, isn't it?
Is it okay? Maybe that's where it's gone wrong for me. Hercules has got an announcement. Talk about creativity. What's going on in the other room?
Yeah, we have Solaris. She's the snake dancer lady from Blade Runner. Yeah. So she's going to be performing, and also for people to draw her in the library.
And the snake as well? Or?
And the snake as well.
Okay.
So it could be interesting if people want to join the drawing session.
Like to join in.
We'll have.
How long is it going on for?
For 2 hours.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be, depending on how the snake tolerates. Will be like some sessions there, and there'll be some movements, and then we'll have a break. So it's going to go on over a couple of hours session.
Okay.
And she'll be, sorry? Apple?
Yeah, to make it more of a biblical sort of feel.
Yeah, we can have a virtual apple.
Okay. Well, there's enough apples. There's an apple here. But
okay, well, everyone, I mean, also anybody else in the room who wants to come to the drawing room in the library for drawing.
It's
just the next room down there.
It
starts now. It's starting now. So if you want to move there'll be some material available to draw as well. Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to draw the lady with a snake,
Sounds scary.
it's so the snake isn't scary at all. But right here, we're not talking about we're not essentially making art. We're talking about making art. We're talking about being creative, living in this world of different perceptions. Where do we want to go? Do we want to talk about the responsibility for this collective imagination, this collective narrative that informs so much of how we perceive things? Do we want to talk about the possibilities for the imagination? Are we actually tapping into those possibilities? You've only just arrived, you probably don't know what we're talking about.
This is right here.
Yeah, well, I can just quickly we started off talking about Vivienne Westwood. Then there were some geeks and some kids, both of which didn't know who Vivienne Westwood was. And then there was what was the quote again? Something about the imagination.
Vivienne Westwood said the imagination was the most erotic place.
Yeah, and that just seemed a bit. So we started talking about the imagination, and then we just tried to work out what the imagination was and what you could and couldn't imagine. It turns out you can't imagine what you can't imagine. Which is kind of obvious, I suppose. And then we started talking about different perceptions and different ways of seeing the world, informing different imaginations. And now we're talking about, it's not just about the perceptions and way of seeing the world, or maybe it is, but there's also a kind of narrative, a background, where you've come from, kind of informs that way of seeing the world and the imagination as well. And that's where we are right now. But it's kind of up to us where we travel, where we go. Oh, hang on, so I've just pulled out the plug of this. So hang on. I've imagined I pulled it out, and I have pulled it out. Okay, yeah.
I wonder if anyone could have imagined where this conversation was going to go from the beginning. Can you predict, based on a very small amount of data, like where things are going to go? Can you extrapolate something as amorphous as a conversation?
No, and I think that's the great thing about this particular format, especially, is we don't know what we're going to talk about, and that leads to a much greater possibility than saying, right now we're going to talk about this or that.
So what we're talking about there is the phenomenon of emergence. You don't. A conversation is one of those forms where you do not know what's going to emerge. What I think we don't have sufficient of in society right now is enough experiences where people can actually engage with emergence and actually actively participate in the creation of emergence, especially when it comes to creating new futures, either economically, socially, or whatever.
He's gone off to the snake because it's a bit too common. So there's not enough space to allow emergence to happen in our world. Do people agree with Mamadine? Do they disagree?
There've been lots of experiments with this.
Yeah.
One of them was like you're doing here, Talkaoke. Another one was the cafe, these thought cafes, ideas cafes. We've now got more cafes than ever. £2.60 a coffee. You can understand why it's big business. But what's interesting is that when you go into the cafes, you don't get everybody chatting to each other, except in this culture, in London. But if you had that in Afghanistan in the past, if you have it in France, 1920, if you have it in San Francisco or something, there'd be more interchange between the different tables, moving the tables. Right. What do you think it will take to get people to do what we're doing now all over the place? Because I think that would be bliss.
Network. Turn off the mobile phone network.
Okay.
Or,
shut down the mobile phone network.
Maybe for a day.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's key is actually the hosting and the form. You know, you have to have someone who's willing to actually effectively convene conversations and actually generate and provoke them. That helps a lot. You don't always have to have it, but it accelerates and enables a lot more than not having it.
I think it goes back to the point I made earlier. It's necessity. When it has to happen, it comes out. If you have to do it for survival, if you have to do it because you want to go in that direction, you need to go in that direction, it will come to light. Okay. So it's if it's not in need, then I don't think the human's instinct would really be so kind of partial to go, no, I don't need to do it, so I won't. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I think it's overcomplicating things. I think it's just specifically British society because we go out to get away from people and we just hide in our little bubbles and we don't want to engage with other people. I think it works in other countries because they want to talk. We don't. We kind of
You're
like.
saying we don't want to. Let's call it our collective. We don't want to share our reality.
I think it's a
with other
generalisation, but yeah, I think in England or Britain rather, we're just a bit more recalcitrant and just want to, you know.
Yeah.
I think we're very fortunate in Britain to have so much culture surrounding us, and I think that kind of shows an eager eye to wanting to be talking about the conscious state. Really, I think.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I think it's obviously a first world problem.
I mean,
but on from that, you know, I think it's lucky to be living in a society like this if that takes your interest.
Okay,
so I think we are aware of it and we do want to talk about it. You can make a choice of whether or not you want to engage with it, but it's certainly there to be taken if you want to take it.
Are we imaginatively rich or are we imaginatively bereft in this country? What do people think? Are we surrounded by culture and sharing our realities, or are we in our own little bubbles? A bit of both, probably.
We're rich. When you're at a party, where's everybody talking? What's always the best room? It's the kitchen.
Yeah.
So instead of forming a cafe, if you made it look like a kitchen, everybody go in there and make it a small kitchen so everybody's crushed together.
Okay.
They'd all start bloody talking.
So lots of kitchens around the place, lots more little tiny kitchens.
The Last Supper.
Yeah.
Did they talk? Did Jesus talk? I don't know.
Well, they probably said something to one another
Do you
while they
think
were
that
eating.
at the Last Supper the biggest conversations were happening in the kitchen?
Who's going to pay for it?
Well, who's going to pay for it? That's a very good question. Maybe it was us. I don't know. There we go. That's the sign of the times.
Okay, so could we have lots of street corner kitchens where people had to huddle into tiny spaces to get things out of the fridge and then they start talking? Would that work as a way of actually getting people talking, sharing their ideas and imagination?
Yeah, if we dedicated a tiny bit of space to that kind of idea, I think it'd be quite a healthy thing. It is frustrating when you kind of want to talk to someone, just like when you're just a bit bored or anything. You're walking from place to place, you've got an hour to kill, something like that, and I'd just like to go somewhere for a bit of conversation, but it doesn't exist. Like
a sketch, isn't it, where they go in to have to pay for a conversation, and it's
I believe it's an argument.
Oh, an argument, is it? Okay.
No, it's not. Anyway, sorry.
That's going to end the conversation quite soon. But I think maybe people need to have an excuse. But I guess we have the pub, don't we? We have the pub that in our society, coffee. Congregating over coffee is much of a bigger deal in the Mediterranean, hotter cultures, and we have the pub to go to. Generally speaking, obviously,
is it working there in the pub? Do you think?
Is it what? Sorry.
Is that conversation, that kind of sharing of ideas and share, is it happening in the pub?
Well, it can get a bit heavy-handed, can't it, after a few pints of Stella? Okay. Potentially.
Yeah. I mean,
run high.
Jerry?
A lot of them are about whether the goal was any good or not.
Okay, so it's a lot of football-related conversation. Let's just get around. We've got a couple of new faces that we haven't properly identified. So we've got Suzanne, we've got Brian, we've got Apple, we've got Mamading, what's her name?
Seps.
And
Rowan.
And
Jerry.
Alex.
Well, I did that slightly inconsistently. I know. I hope you are just going to pass over that. So where do we want to take this conversation? Do we want to talk about, do we actually feel the need to actually stimulate more conversations, stimulate more idea sharing in our world? Does it have to happen? Is it just the fact that this is just a bunch of unusual people that are particularly keen to do that? Or, I mean, what's going on?
I think, analogous to wealth, I think there needs to be more equilibration, because I think there's a lot of people who talk a lot, and there's a lot of people who don't talk at all, and I'd like more people who don't talk much to talk more, and a lot of people who talk way too much to talk a bit less. That's not a criticism of you at all. I'm just saying, like, again, this idea of going, like pubs or something. I never strike up a conversation with strangers in pubs. I wish I could, but Yeah, but just can't, just don't, just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But I'd like for that to be more of a thing, like for spontaneous conversation to just be available for everyone and not just.
you from striking up those conversations?
I think it's just I wasn't a pub person pretty when I was younger, so I've never ingratiated myself in that kind of culture.
How much is it? Sorry, to interrupt. How much is it to be? Is it being in London as well? Because if you go to Glasgow, people just have a conversation with you on the street. You know,
Really?
they'll just say come up to you and start talking about their day. You know, without any invitation, and that's quite charming. You know, and maybe in London we're sort of. I mean, there's statistics, aren't there, that say that over a population of 50 million, we can't handle taking in everybody personally, and that's why when people come to London, I think we're very unfriendly because we don't talk. But it's not that we don't talk; we sort of have our private networks of people.
We're a bit overloaded with
information,
people,
especially. And then you go to Glasgow, and people will just chat to you as soon as you get off the train, you know, and it's kind of quite endearing, and you know.
Does that mean that this city's too large and too compressed? Do we need a bit more space to be able to?
I like the night train, because at the night train it's 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock and people talk because you don't give a shit. You're in love, you're not in love, you have a good night, and people talk. On the bus, people talk.
Okay, I always cycle home. Occasionally you have a chat at traffic lights. Come and have a seat on the table of chat. We're talking about, do people talk to each other enough in London? Are they talking to each other too much? Is it kind of annoying, or is it actually enlightening? What were you going to say?
Yeah, I think coming to the point that you were making, I think that's really about the state that people are in, because, you know, for example, when people are going to and from work, they're commuting, they do not want to engage with other people. They're pretty antisocial at that stage. But, you know, when it gets late enough, people become very different.
So it's more about where they're going to, where they're coming from.
Yeah,
which kind
so the key word there is their state, where they are at that moment in time.
In the way their mental space. We've got a couple of new faces to the table. So we've got Alex, we've got Jerry, we've got Rowan, we've got Seps, we've got Mamading, Apple Tart, Brian, and Suzanne. Okay, I'll get a final thought from you, but let's find out who these people are. What's your name?
Veronica.
And?
Giuliano.
Was it?
Giuliano.
Okay, Suzanne, final thought.
Okay, final thought. I was intrigued by your comment about needing a convener for conversation, because that seemed like an interesting view about how infantilized the society might have become, that we need permission from a grown-up to do things we ought to be able to manage on our own.
Is that the way you see it? That we shouldn't need a convener for a conversation? That we should be mature enough?
Yes.
Mature enough to actually handle it ourselves?
All on our own, like
okay.
Yeah.
Was it an infantilization?
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Put in place.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff there in the conversation. Do you need someone to give you permission to talk?
I don't know.
You don't know, okay.
I mean, like, if you have a conversation with someone, do you have to wait for them to give you permission, or is it okay just talking to someone? Or is it like, do you have to be polite and say...
I'm going to turn the question on to you, Alex. What do you think?
Well, you know, I think it's healthy to have conversations. But it's all about environment, isn't it? Because in London you can't really just go up to someone and have a conversation, for example, as we said. But, you know, if something dramatic happened, like, I don't know, there was an accident, people would start talking. So a lot of it is all very emotional, and I guess it's about bringing people out of their mental states. Because when you have a sort of situation where something dramatic happens, people are brought out of their mental state. When everyone's walking out on an autopilot, they just walk around on autopilot.
So you need to actually click out of the normal habits of life, and suddenly you're talking. Suddenly you're actually saying something when you're out of the norm.
Yeah, I think picking up on that point, and I'd like to slightly disagree with Suzanne. I don't think it's so much about infantilization. I think it's more about that human beings are very sensitive to context, socially speaking, and therefore, if someone can actually facilitate the context, which is what a host does, then that makes it easier for the conversation to get started in the flow.
More about context than permission. Anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, we've heard the word context so many times this particular weekend. Do you know what context means? Context? No. What? Someone explain. What's context?
It's basically it's what's going on. It's what the situation is. What's going on around us.
The background, in a way.
Yeah.
Or what the set to the action is, I suppose. What's going on as the action's actually happening. And you're saying that context is very important to create the right context, the right background for people to feel safe and comfortable to do the talking. Or whatever, do whatever.
It makes sense, and it also explains, I guess, why everyone is comfortable in different environments. And I kind of agree with what you were saying about cities earlier, but with the exception of New York, which I found to be one of the chattiest places ever. And when I went, it was just every person there was just chatting with you on a train or in a shop or something. And I just kind of wanted to try and bring that back to London, and it lasted for about a month before it just got beaten out of me.
What has New York got that London hasn't got in terms of like that conversation? Why are people talking to each other more in New York?
I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I mean, just because they're so similar. London and New York are very similar cities.
Okay.
I think the thing there in that New Yorkers want you to know how they feel, whereas we Londoners, we're Brits, so we keep a stiff upper lip. Why the hell are we going to tell people how we feel?
Okay, so they're very open with their emotions, and that's why they talk about how they. I suppose people agree, disagree.
What about Buenos Aires? You're from Buenos Aires, right? People talk?
Do people talk more in Buenos Aires?
Yeah, people talk a lot
Why?
in Buenos Aires. In the bus stop, everywhere. The people is very friendly there.
Why is that, you think?
I don't know. It's natural from Latin people. They are very friendly.
Yeah, it's part of their nature.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, do you think you could ever make it more like that in London?
Maybe.
Do we just need to import more people from Latin America? How do we do that?
I don't know.
Maybe because I guess there's more Latin people in New York, I suppose. I've seen West Side Story. It's a bit old now, but I guess it's still the same idea. The story is even older.
Maybe we maybe post Brexit, if we build better trade links with Latin America, we might get more Latin American people here.
Yeah, that will possibly happen. I don't know. I don't know. Where's this conversation going? I feel like we need a refresh. We need to go in a different place. What's that?
Don't go down the Brexit route.
Okay, we've done that all this morning, to be honest. Yeah.
To deliberately stop that from happening, I was going to say actually, but yeah, I like the idea of forming stronger links with South America. And on the topic of communication, it's because perhaps we should all be learning Spanish, because that would be a really useful language to learn, and it would be amazing if they taught us Spanish at school and stuff, and in a proper way, and we could all speak Spanish and speak in 20 more countries than we currently can.
So, why are we not learning Spanish? Yep.
Personally, I'd advocate for Portuguese. You want to talk to the Brazilians.
Okay, so you would rather go the Brazilian way. I mean, we are at this virtual reality event. Could people imagine a kind of Matrix-style plug-in where you could just put something into your ear or something like that, and then be able to speak these different languages? Because it just seems like such a drag to spend so many years learning a language, and even then you've got a funny accent. Do you know what I mean? Surely there must be a shortcut to that, and all these technical people should have an answer.
There is actually a functional babblefish ear thing now.
Yeah? Does it actually work?
No, it actually works. I have not tried it, but it will translate what someone says into your language.
Okay, and will it translate what you say back into their language? Well, that's a bit more tricky. Eventually, yeah. I mean,
if they had one too, then it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, I suppose, you need two. One, a clean one, I suppose, to put into their ear. I mean, perhaps we could go. It's not. It's kind of up to you to decide where you want to take this conversation. But I'm wondering if, when we're talking about languages, will this question of language be redundant in the future? Will we be able to overcome the barriers of language, where it doesn't matter if you speak Spanish and I speak English, because technology will solve the problem?
It feels like it, because as time's gone on, we've become better at communication and trading and so on, so with some exceptions. But like, I kind of assume it will go further than that. You can kind of extrapolate forward and it might not be an issue eventually. Maybe we will all learn one universal language like Esperanto or something. Probably won't, but...
Okay, I mean, yep.
I think it's not so much whether it's languages or not. I think it's about what stories we're telling each other in these languages. You know,
it's more about the stories.
Exactly. What are we saying to each other about how things are, and what we can do together, and how we're growing together as individuals and as a society.
So it's more about. So I'm going to come back to that question, but let's just get a final thought from this quadrant of the table. It looks like you're about to go. Have you got a final thought? Or?
Well, obviously, a year on, it's the second year of Hackstock, isn't it? And Talkaoke at Hackstock, very interesting conversation. And, you know, I came onto this table, we were talking about conversations, and I think it's great to get this kind of conversation going, because you understand that, you know, even though because people don't speak, we feel a bit alienated.
Yeah.
But when you get into a situation like this, we realise that everyone's sharing a similar view. I know we're in London and we all maybe are biased, but I think it's healthy to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting we're having a conversation about conversations in a way. Any final thoughts? Or initial thoughts? Final thought? Have you enjoyed coming here today?
Yeah.
What have you liked? What have you seen there?
No, I just arrived.
You just arrived, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, have you seen the snake? I'm going to possibly go and draw the lady with a snake very shortly. Do you want to actually, Rowan, do you want to have a go, jump in the middle?
Jump in the middle.
For the final session of Hackstock. So we're going to keep it hot. I'm going to jump out of the table. But we're going to keep the conversation going. I will say, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it clearly and loudly, it's up to you to decide where you want to take this conversation. This is the final session of conversation when we've gone on the enlightening and extravagant journey through the minds of all the participants here. Where will we go next? It's up to everyone around the table. I'm going to jump out, but let's keep it warm. Give a big round of applause for Rowan. It's going to take over the chat.
Should we pose a question to the table that you can be talking about while we're switching our mics over?
What would the question be?
I don't know. How about what should we talk about? Pitch an idea and pass it round.
Anything but politics.
Personally, the reason why I came to Hackstock in the first place is because I'm interested in exploring what the possibilities are in terms of shaping society for the 21st century. That's why I came, so I'd like to talk about that.
So future possibility. Is it on mute?
Future possibilities, but also I think it's
there we go.
to be aware in the present state.
What do you mean by that?
I think we were living on different time frames as we were discussing before, and I think it's easy to kind of not be aware of being present.
So appreciate the present moment and don't just.
I'm not saying
live in the past or the future or
I'm not
something,
saying appreciating it in a manner of speaking. I'm just being aware of it. Really, I think that's easily forgotten, especially in London. I think. Not to say that that's a good or a bad thing. I'm very aware of it.
Okay. We've got some new faces around the table, so I'm just going to say hello to these over here. So can I just get your name, please?
Hi, my name is Kim.
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 Cool. And
I'm Kenny.
Kenny.
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome, Kim and Kenny. We've got Mikey. We've got Jerry. We've got Sebs. We've got Mamaji. No. Mamaji. Okay. Don't speak with your mouth full. Anyway, I'll come back to you. Apple Tart, and we've got Brian. We're creating a new conversation, and the topic springboarded of something that Mamading said, which was he is curious and optimistic about the future. Is that right? And but Apple Touch says, but we shouldn't lose sight of the present. Yeah. So what is it about the future that interests you?
Creating one that works better for the majority of us.
Pardon me? And
creating a future that works better for the majority of us.
So you're thinking more about what can happen in the future to make things better. And what about Jerry?
Okay, well that's pretty much what I work in. I'm a freelance space presenter, so I'm always talking about what's going to happen. Any of you know the great film Plan 9 from Outer Space? Might recognise the quote from the beginning from the great Criswell, who said, "We're all interested in the future because that's where we're going to spend the rest of our lives."
Is everyone familiar? What's the film called?
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Plan 9 from Outer Space?
Generally regarded as the worst film ever made.
Now, that might be why some people haven't heard of it.
I don't think being in the present and being in the future are necessarily antagonistic to each other, because the present is the door through which we get to the future.
In that metaphor, what happens when you close the door?
You go to the next present and you're in the next door. It's a series of a long series. It's in fact a corridor.
Excellent. Tell us about your. You said you were a space presenter. So
Yeah.
do you think about the future a lot? And do you kind of agree with Mikey that it's a series of things leading to each other? Do we have control over where we go in this future, or?
Do we have control? That's interesting. I mean, there's various things that restrict us, which is our technological abilities, and obviously, if there's activities which are funded by governments, then it's what the government says we're going to do or not do. So, Obama says we're going to do something, and then Trump comes along and says we're not going to do that. No, I mean, like he shuts down NASA's education budget, for example. But let's try and stay off politics.
I was about to say, yeah, we're dangerously close there.
Yeah, I know.
Bit of politics.
But we continue to learn. We continue to evolve technologically, and we learn how to do amazing things. Just yesterday, it was announced that there's a test stand going to be built for a new engine called Sabre. This is being developed here in the UK, and this will be an engine which starts off acting as a jet engine and then transforms into a rocket engine, and it will be able to carry a craft up to orbit in one go.
And what's special?
We've never been able to do that before.
Right.
We've had rockets where you've got one stage on top of another, and the lower stages get dropped off and they fall in the ocean and they're not reused, although Elon Musk is doing a fantastic job of turning that around. But if you've got a craft which can take off on a runway and go up and actually reach orbit, deliver its payload, come back, land on a runway again, all it needs is a bit of maintenance and fuel, and you can reuse it. And that brings down the price of reaching orbit amazingly. And once we do that, once we can bring down the cost of reaching space, we can do all kinds of things. What would you like to see us doing in space?
If this can happen and we can get low-cost space launches, then what would that mean for you lot? Would you go to space if you could?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not?
I don't know. Why?
Why? Because if
what would you do there?
I would see what I could see and then come up with stuff that I want to do. Yes.
Okay, Mikey.
I think I would go to space once, but I think it's just a one-off really, because there's only a certain amount of things you can do in space, and one of the things about space, I think there's only one film about this. It's just very, very boring out there. It's just empty. So yeah, I do think everyone would want to go to space once, but just stick to the one time.
I mean, what about? I'll come back to Jerry in a second. But what about some other opinions about what? Yeah, what would you, Mamadine? Would you?
Personally, I'd like to tour around the whole damn solar system. I'd like to have a look at everything, and if I could get beyond that, I'd like to look at all that too.
So kind of the opposite. It's not like there's limited amount of things to do. There's too much to do.
Yes.
Anyone share that or contradict that? Or
Yeah, I mean, didn't they set up some website? I don't know if it was real or was it real? But basically, it was for people to sign up to go and live on Mars, and people had to send in a YouTube video to say why they should be those people. So I think that's quite amazing. Like respect. Like.
And could you nominate people as well?
I don't know. But like, serious, like loads of people sent in these YouTube videos, and so I mean, you know, there's a market for it for sure, isn't there? People want to see more of the universe. It's clear.
Except for Mikey, apparently, who just thinks it's going to be boring and.
Well, it's a reality check. I mean, I was amazed actually. The telepresent guy, put something up on Facebook yesterday, which was a picture from Cassini of the sky of Saturn inside the rings. It was the most amazing, beautiful photograph and magical. You couldn't even believe that it was a real photograph. It was so amazing. But Cassini spent 12 years getting to Saturn. So you've got to spend 12 years twiddling your thumbs, watching YouTube videos before you actually get to something interesting.
Okay, Jerry, you want to respond to that? I'll come to that moment.
So at the moment, it takes about 7 to 9 months to get to Mars. With a plasma engine, which is currently under development, we could do it in 39 days,
That'd be all right.
which
It's like a long
changes
cruise.
everything.
Yeah.
And once you get to Mars, God, there's so much you can do there. It really is.
So at the moment it takes time, but like anything, it's going to get quicker. Oh, is he? Yeah, you were going to say exactly the same thing. Okay, so there we go. So we've got to Mars in a month. Could you tolerate that? You reckon?
As long as I can get back.
All right.
In a similar sort of time, that's fine. I mean, I do think that there's quite enough to explore that we haven't explored on our own planet. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't go to the other planets, but I think there's a lot of hype about space exploration.
I feel this almost echoes kind of what Apple was saying after Mabading said, you're really excited about the future, but don't lose sight of the present, be aware of the present. Is it a little bit analogous to that? Like, there's all this stuff out there, but don't lose track of the home? No? Okay. I thought that'd be a nice way of putting it together.
No, I mean, why can't we have that fascination and wonder about our own planet, about exploring the depths? Let's get a final thought.
Can we get a final thought of Kenny and Kim?
Probably gonna wait till they actually colonize Mars and make it like habitable before I'm even remotely interested in leaving this planet.
So you're a tourist, not a pioneer.
Tourist, probably.
A tourist, not a pioneer.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you know, you have to let the other people do it first, you know, just in case something happens.
But what if everyone had that attitude? No one would go first.
There are different people. I mean, someone will.
Cool. Kim, do you have a final thought for us?
Like, where would you guys be around again?
Sorry?
Where would you guys pop up
Glad
again?
you asked that. We're going to be at the Imperial Science Festival tomorrow. Please take a flyer and see us at South Kensington.
Do you guys bring the table with you though?
Yep. I mean, technically, Mikey and Rick up here do. I just come along for the ride.
I see. I would like to know you guys more, but like, we're gotta go.
We've got that sorted too. You have a card. Excellent. There we go. Okay. Well, yep. Nice meeting you too. Come and join. We've got a spare couple of seats now. It'll be fine. You can just sit and absorb. You don't have to talk. Anyone in earshot can come and join the conversation. In fact, just come and grab a seat. Just have to come and sit and absorb, and then we'll bring you in as you see fit. Plenty of seats. Hello. Welcome to the table. No, go for it. I don't think there's anyone sitting there. Let's some people know each other. That's handy. Shortcut something. Well, let's get a round of names of our new faces.
Hello, I'm Afra Shemza. I'm a light artist, interactive designer.
Sorry, what's your name?
Afra Shemza.
Afra Shemza.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your name?
Oh,
Hello, Maria Almena. I'm the director of Kimatica Studio.
Yema.
Almena, yeah, Spanish. I'm a multimedia artist and I am the director of Kimatica Studio, collective specialized in digital performance. And Afra and I, we run together a project called Flax Events, where we connect new media artists. That's as far as I.
Cool.
Short presentation.
And last but not least.
Yes. And I'm Shamarin. I'm the head of Global Digital Product Management. Shamarin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say good luck on this.
We all have difficult names.
Almena.
Maria.
Oh, Maria. Maria, that's much easier. Thank you. Okay, Maria and
Shamarin.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. And we've got Brian, we've got Apple, we've got Mamading, we've got Sebs, we've got Jerry, Mikey, and Rowan. So nice to meet everyone. We're talking about, I guess, the forefront of exploration, and both inner space and in our planet as well. Yeah, go for it. I'll put that somewhere. Jerry was telling us that in the UK they're building this new engine that means that we're going to get space so much easier. So we posed the question, who would want to go to space and why, and so on. And Mikey suggested it might actually be a bit boring up there, and we've had some contradiction to that. That actually there's a lot to see. There's loads of sort of different planets and so on. But there's also a lot of stuff at home that we need to kind of sort out first. And I guess we're around there now. So that's kind of where we are. Any thoughts on this so far? The stuff we've covered.
Yeah. Well, if there was a choice, I would if they say if there's anyone volunteer to go to space or do anything, I probably would volunteer myself.
Yeah.
The reason is this because. Actually, I got a mentor, and once he told me everything, basically it's a bit scary for people, to try something new. And I was reading that majority of people, before they quit on something, before they even try it. Okay, so that's what I was thinking. I said I would do it first. The reason is this, because my mentor told me this. He said the most beautiful moments in life is actually on the other side of the fear, okay, and the other side of the death. So you can experience it. I would definitely be like, you know what, it's worth it. Sacrifice your life for that. So yeah.
Well, that's quite a nice philosophy. Anyone kind of share that? Is anyone a risk taker? I'll come to Mikey in a sec. Let's see here from Maria first.
Yeah, I would love to go to space. I'm a space creature, I always say. I love the cosmos, fascinated by it. And I've always had that dream when I was a child. I was like, I really would love, to be in space and look at the Earth from the kind of space perspective. And then, obviously, I came to the conclusion that it was so hard, to be an astronaut and all of that. It wasn't for me, I'm a creative person. And then I just gonna give another twist to this conversation because that's my experience with space and cosmos. So then I actually had in the last few years a few experiences with ayahuasca where actually I found myself feeling and just being in the cosmos, and that's the closest I've been to be there, and that was a wonderful experience, and I wish I could visit more often, really.
Well, I'm curious then, why do we go to space? Surely ayahuasca is cheaper than inventing a rocket engine.
It is. It's a lot cheaper to investigate the inner space than the outer space, for sure. And maybe Donald Trump's new space program, if he wants to save money, should be more in terms of investing in things like ayahuasca rather than investing in rockets, because it would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, will we still get research done though?
I really like your point about the fear, that any exploration is about going to the other side of fear, be it like the first sailors to cross the Atlantic. Imagine the fear of just this vast space of petrifying water, and you're just going to go, no, I'm going to keep on going through the fear to the other side.
Yeah.
To go on from the point, so giving people drugs rather than kind of exploring any further, I think that gives more momentum to kind of creating a more sedate society, because in terms of relating that to technology, we're kind of slowly grinding to a halt as the human the human kind of present state, how we move, how we interact with one another. Technology is kind of pulling us to not needing to actually even leave the house anymore. And I think if you're kind of going in the direction of exploring the mind, which I think is really fruitful in terms of how you can engage with perception, yes, but I think it's bringing us more and more to a sedate place. We're not actually using what we have set in front of us, like the ability to, you know, walk or kind of engage with one another, or you know, not walk all the time, you know, maybe use transport, use our minds to create transport so we can explore the world in which we inhabit. So I think there's two things kind of going on there. So it's anyway, that was a tangent on from really your point.
Let's hear from Mamading. So I kind of see what you mean. It's like in the same way that everyone's playing with VR. Is that going to stop people leaving the house and so on? We're becoming more sedate because of tech and potentially because of drugs that occupy us more than space travel. Mamading.
Yeah, I'm just picking up from that point. Ever since Orwell wrote 1984, one vision of the future that people have been scared of is the one where there's tyranny and surveillance. Well, it may not seem obvious whether we have the tyranny, we would definitely have the surveillance. But also another vision of the future was Huxley's Brave New World and Soma and all of that kind of stuff. And actually our technology and the entertainment aspects of it is a very Huxleyan experience.
Can you give us a bit of background? Like what do you mean by that?
Okay, so in the Brave New World, there's this drug called Soma, which people actually take, and it has that pacifying effect. And in many ways, the technology that we have of social media and apps and all the rest of that kind of thing can have that effect.
So to like act to be like a soporific, they're just sedating us and so on. Hence what you were saying. Shamira.
So I guess I kind of think of like, why would you want to go into space? And I just thought about when like traveling, like so until I was 25, I had never left the U.S. and I had a perception of what the world was like. And then I finally traveled, and now I've been to many countries. And every time I visit a country, I feel like I never come back the same person because it changes my perception of the world being bigger than me. And I think going into space is the ultimate, wow, the world is bigger than me. And I wonder, would you actually have to go up in a rocket and actually be in space, or could you use technology or another experience, whether it's drugs or VR or even, I'm not good at meditating, but like meditative experience to have that same, I guess, epiphany type feeling that would change your perception?
Well, I mean, ask this team over here do have like a space simulator thing. You could ask them, go and have a play with that, and Not that I think you should leave the table.
I'm just curious to know what your idea of the world was before you visited it, just to see what it was like. What is the kind of that view?
Okay, yeah. Pre and post leaving the US, what was? Would you have got along with yourself at 24?
No, I think in the US, especially, our news is very biased, and it's very commercialized because we have, all the news is paid for by commercials. So it's very slanted. It's a very small view of the world. It's very biased. It's not like your news here, BBC, is much better. So we don't really look at much of anything that's happening in the world around us. We just think about the US or like wherever we are. We're very closed-minded to other cultures or any other way of living. We think we're I'm just speaking for all of America now, but we think that everyone is like us, or our way of living is the correct way. We have no comprehension. Like when I went to Africa and saw that people were still living in such poverty, I mean, we have no idea, just completely clueless if anything else is happening around us. And then
so to say it's opened your mind is kind of putting it lightly.
I mean, it sort of reminds me of one of the first places I went to when I was at art school was Eastern Europe, and this was like in the 90s. We'd just come out of the Cold War, and my belief about Eastern Europe was it was all kind of cold and grey and miserable people, and it wasn't a shock to me exactly, but it was just a pleasant surprise to find how colourful and lively that it was.
Mamading,
sorry, I didn't come to you earlier.
So there is actually this thing called the overview effect. It's a well-known phenomenon with astronauts and cosmonauts going to orbit and then look back on Earth. They just have a cognitive shift, and they see it's one world and it's no nations and it's one humanity, and they feel this overwhelming need to protect and serve the planet. Now, if a lot more people had that cognitive shift, it would make a huge amount of difference, I would feel.
So again, I wonder if we can replicate that virtually. Maybe we can shortcut a way to people getting along. Maria, let's hear from you, and then Jerry, did you just have your hand up? I'll come to you.
Yeah, I've actually watched a documentary that it was exploring that. It was telling the story of a few astronauts and how, and it kind of became the symbol, you know, of like, of the Earth, you know, looking from the outside of the symbol of like we are one, and you know how to protecting how important it was to protect the Earth, but just. Going back to what you say, that I totally agree. I think, you know, because humans, like for us, emotions and cognitive experiences, they are so powerful that sometimes the physical experience is not as needed, and that's why I think technology now, and like I believe artists that use technology have a mission and a power that can basically bring all those experiences to you know, to the wider audience, and that's something I'm really interested in, how to use technology and I guess like any transcendental experiences or any medium and technique that can help, you know, to provide this transcendental experience.
Jerry, what do you think? Like, do you think people could maybe just have transcendental experiences and explore space that way as well as, or instead of rocketry?
Virtual reality will not be the same as actually being there. I mean, knowing that you are actually out in space, that is really going to be another effect. And as you said, the effect of looking back on the Earth has been amazing. When the first people went to the moon, the Apollo 8 crew in December 1968, they circled the moon 10 times, and after the flight, the White House sent out photos of the Earth to world's leaders all around the planet, and they got back these amazing messages saying thank you for sharing this with us. And there's a terrific graph showing the number of bills that went through Congress relating to environmental issues. And it sort of goes along like this, and it comes to 1968, and after that it just shoots upwards. And we learned so much more about the Earth by going to the moon and going out into space. We look back on it, we discover so much more, and we continue to do that.
And what on earth went wrong?
I mean, I know it's a bit late in the day, and this has also become a kind of banned subject on the Talkaoke table.
The P for politics.
But I wonder if that's what should have been at the heart of the Remain campaign. We should have been sending swathes of people in a virtual reality tour of space to look back on their one tiny planet, to see, you know, how kind of unimportant these national borders actually are.
Sorry, I didn't mean to not pay attention, but Brian just drew this for us. Sorry, Maria. Yeah.
Can I ask you, was your because I wasn't in the first part of the conversation. What is do you work for like any space station, or was your?
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
I run Spaceflight UK, and I'm a freelance space presenter. I do public talks all over the country and abroad on space. I go out to schools, do space workshops. I appear on TV or on radio, and I have a book about going to the moon and other places. So I'm always trying to tell people about the benefits of space and how it's going to help us in the future, and about how we might live in the future.
So very optimistic in all walks of life.
So, like, slight tangent again, but one of my very good friends he goes and helps indigenous tribes fight for their rights to have the land that they've been living on forever.
Okay.
So that's what he does. Relating to space, he met a space lawyer who is currently fighting for the right, well, not for the right, kind of the opposite of that, to not allow people to mine the moon.
Interesting.
So,
okay. But what's his reason for not wanting to mine the moon, or for wanting to mine? He wants to mine the
No,
moon.
he doesn't want them to.
He wants them
he's
to
like
not
fighting
mine
for
the
them
moon.
not to be able to mine on the moon.
What,
Which
is there an
like-
indigenous population there that we don't know about that's having a bit of a tizzy?
No, but I just thought it was really interesting that there are these kind of issues and subjects being talked about, and even, you know, laws being passed. And yet I had no idea that there was even laws about space. How can we be mining the moon? It doesn't belong to us, does it? Or like, what are we?
I guess this is what your friend is trying to figure out. Let's just hear from Mike, and then I'll pop over to.
I mean, to me, the
Mamadou and
moon
Jerry.
sounds like a much more sensible place to mine than the Earth, which is full of people and full of nature, whereas the moon is just a desolate kind of ball of rock in space. What, to me, it sounds like a very, very useful place to mine.
Hang on, but I'll just hear contradicting, and then I'll come over to Mamadou and
Isn't the
Jerry.
whole of Earth dependent on the moon? Like the tides are dependent on the moon. Like lots of animals are dependent on the moon. The moon cycle. What if the moon isn't there anymore? What happens?
Hang on. We're not going to use it all up. I just want to hear from Mamadou, and then I'll come back to Jerry because we've heard a bit. But.
So one of the things they'll be wanting to mine on the moon is this stuff called helium-3. It's that's like going to be like a next generation fuel, which is going to enable us to do, which can unleash so much fuel and so much power and energy. We're not going to be wanting for energy anymore as a species.
So that will be what we put in our cars instead, helium-3. And is there enough of it on the moon to apparently to make it worth it? Okay.
Lots more than and more easily available than on the Earth. But let's come back to the space laws. In 1967, the United Nations published the Outer Space Treaty, which says, amongst other things, nobody can own the moon or any other space body. They are, the moon and the planets are there as the heritage of all mankind. And because of that, it's been said, therefore, you cannot mine the moon because you cannot own bits of it. And yet there are lots of things that we'd like to do where getting materials from the moon would be A, much easier than the Earth, and B, much better than getting them from the Earth. So I said that was 1967, so this year is the 50th anniversary of the UN Treaty. I'm actually organising a conference in October on the 50th anniversary to discuss this and see how we want to go forward. Because when it was drawn up, all space activities were conducted by governments. And now we have private companies like SpaceX and so forth. And obviously, they're still bounded by the laws of their country, which have signed up to the UN Treaty. But what we want to look at is how the treaty should be modified to allow certain activities to take place, which would be of great benefit to us. We're not talking about taking away the moon. To build...
Let me just pass it over to Mike.
Just a quick thing. I'm also leading a project about space colonies, and to build a space colony that could house 10,000 people out in space, the amount of material you'd need to take from the moon would be too small to be seen by the Hubble Space Telescope. It's just that tiny.
So we're in no danger of running out of moon like we are rainforest.
But what I find fascinating is we can make this treaty about the moon, but what about the Earth? You know, the Earth has got a common heritage of all mankind and all animal kind and plant kind, yet we're quite happy to section it off, say you own that bit, you can extract everything down to the Earth's core out of this bit of Earth. When are we going to have the treaty about the Earth?
Yeah. When should we? Should we have a shared treaty about using the Earth?
Well, yes,
I
think we should. There is just one place on Earth that is protected, and that's Antarctica.
Okay.
But just recently, some clown of a president has signed a bill saying that his country can drill for oil there. Now, why does he think that his national laws override the laws of the United Nations? He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
I don't know. I can't imagine what's going through this particular individual's head.
I know. But the protection was there deliberately. Before we really did much exploration there, it was said, we've got to protect this. This has got to be a preserve. And we should do this in other areas like the Amazon rainforest.
So it was kind of approached with the same spirit as with outer space. Everyone was like, no, let's protect this. And now someone's trying to contravene that. And a representative of this nation is going to...
So this is really more of a comment or question.
Sure, yeah.
Is that, with some of the activity happening with North Korea and, people saying that we're in danger of World War III, read an article saying that actually the next warfare beyond even nuclear is going to be taken in space. So having different weapons in space or different blocking of satellites or communication or intelligence, because all of our communication are throughout there, and so they might try to sabotage that to cut off communication so you can't operate as well, or have space launched weapons, which scares me a lot. So it's kind of taking something that we take for granted as having all these satellites up there for our communication, but they could actually be used for quite evil purposes.
Well, yikes. So there's kind of pros and cons to some of this space exploration as well. We've got a new face to the table. Do you want to give us your name?
Ines.
Ines, welcome to the table. And we have Sebs, we have Mamading, Apple, Brian, Shamiran, Maria, Afra, Mikey, Jerry, and I'm Rowan. So talking about space and whether or not we should be doing certain things in space. Apparently there are space lawyers who are trying to protect the moon from mining, but there's also an attitude that we should be mining the moon because it's a very sensible place to get apparently our next generation of energy stuff, like our next resource from, which sounds pretty handy because we don't want to dig up the rainforests. There's a treaty in place to stop Antarctica from being drilled, but a certain American president has decided to go against this, and now we're a bit worried about what's going to happen. Which has sort of segued into Shamiran told us that the future of war might not even be on the Earth, it might be in space, and it might be people using satellites against each other and whatnot. Another new face. What's your name?
Azure.
Azure.
Like the color?
Like the color. Azure, like the color. Okay, I'm gonna kind of like your face colors there. Okay, brilliant. That's an easy one to remember. Welcome to Talkaoke. We're talking about space and weapons in space and other things. Mikey.
Just you were talking about space colony. This is a question going out to the whole table. If you were going to start a colony in space, would you have? I know you've heard this one before. Would you have money in that space colony of 10,000 people? Would you start with money, or would you not have money on Mars or wherever?
Pass this around to Apple. I'll come to Azure afterwards.
Maybe go into value systems and what that group of people had value in. Do you know what I mean? I think money is a belief system. I'm sure but you can create a belief system from anything. It's just where you put your values. So if those people's values was in, and then it goes into empathy, or what they had to between us that they could divide up to then create a system out of. And then that's where the imagination thing, which we were talking about earlier, comes into play, because that's a necessity. You need to kind of source a new direction to build from.
Okay.
So
if it wasn't money,
it could be a possibility of anything. But I mean, we've got all those currencies on the internet which aren't actually money. They're just figures, aren't they? Bitcoin and all that. So I think it's already happening, really. So they're patterns, they're shapes. It's not money, and I think it's disrespectful for all the people that work their asses off to get $1. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, that's another conversation entirely.
But
anyway, I think that's a war which is going on in space, and by space I mean the internet. I think that's on par with the space that we look up to in the sky. We're feeding this system, which it's kind of an entity of its own. It's it's as current as the stars.
So it might not just be money, but some other value system might be in place there. And what's Azure? What do you?
Hey, so interestingly enough, someone else thought about this question about money. There's this 100-year-old guy who's been working on this subject for like 80 years now. His name is Zach Fresco. It's called the Venus Project. And basically there's this thing called resource-based economy, and Buckminster Fuller also explored this concept about basically that Earth is like a spaceship, and all human beings are like the crew of the spaceship, and therefore we should all cater for the space crew and not just the elite of the crew. So therefore like, yeah, money is, I don't know, like it shouldn't be around for a while. Like it's becoming obsolete. So thank you.
Money's becoming obsolete, so maybe there'll be more sort of the digital systems. I just want to hear from Maria, then I'll come over to Mamadou.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly that. Resource-based economy, so
Yeah.
all like based on the resources that we have.
Okay.
Because that's the value actually. Like money means nothing; it's the value you can give it. But I think the only thing I will need as a human is resources. You know, in terms of food, house, everything else. I just don't want to be a slave to any other system, really. So yeah, resources-based economy. That's definitely the one I will be proposing in space.
So in space, we can have a resource-based economy rather than a money-based economy.
Yeah, just on that point, there are dozens of ways of redesigning money in economics. Whether we're talking about things like universal basic income, universal basic assets, time banks, you name it. There's lots and lots of ways. I've explored a few of them myself. I helped co-found the Brixton Pound, so it's something I know a little bit about. So that's just want to share that. And I want to pick up Mikey's point earlier about, you know, rights over the land and the planet and that kind of stuff. One of my own personal favourite sayings, which I come up with, I say every now and then, the two most dangerous words in the English language are land reform. Every time a politician comes out of those words, they get assassinated.
Wow, literally. Oh, okay. Land reform. So it might not necessarily be the currency itself. It might be the actual space, the actual the modules of this space thing, the actual cubic meterage. Yeah. So the cubic centimeters you take up might be valuable.
It's going to be quite tricky, and it's going to be quite interesting. A colony on another planet. If you're saying no one can own the land on that planet. How do you divide up the resources? You're going to have to come up with a new way of doing it, which potentially more equitable than just saying, right, you own that bit, you own that bit, and you own that bit.
What about if it's just a free-for-all, Maria? And then I'll come to Azura and Joe.
Yeah. Jack Fresco, he say like the difference between now and when he started to explore this concept is that now we do have the technology to analyze all the resources available and just like divide it equally. So, and what I really like also about his Venus project is that he say that we, will use technology and the machines to do all the tedious work, all the kind of functional work, and we can just be creative, which I think that's what we, as humans, that we should be investing our time, creative and run. I also like what they say that it should be run by creative and scientists, not politicians allowed.
So academic elite.
So yeah, I joined the conversation a little bit late, so I don't know if you already discussed this, but there's this thing called the singularity happening like soon, kind of like probably in 2035, 2045.
What is it?
Basically, the singularity is the point in time where artificial intelligence, becomes like basically like we have deep artificial intelligence. Now we have low AI, then it's deep AI. Long story short is that at some point there will be a non-biological race on planet Earth, basically like intelligent matter. Now, how is that relevant to what we're talking about is that basically because robots will think of us as their ancestors.
Are you sure about that? How do we know that?
Well, I'm not sure about anything, but like my belief is that hopefully, if we work towards the right direction, we'll develop artificial intelligence that is benevolent and not malevolent, or at least neutral. And because we as humans, because we have an expiry date, we only live like 36,000 days, if we're lucky, if we live up to 100, and they're not exponentially the same, qualitatively the same. Basically, long story short is that machines can potentially live forever, therefore they don't have the same human needs as we do. They don't have the need for water, food, money, or status. So therefore they will not act as we do. There will not be any greed, or there won't be any like violence. But of course, like the singularity is the point where artificial intelligence is no longer used by corporations, because corporations will have to develop it anyway.
Who's using it, and who's using it then in 2035?
Well, the singularity is the point in time that artificial intelligence becomes
give us a final thought.
self-conscious.
So 2035 is when artificial intelligence comes. Oh wait, Shamina, where are you going? Come and give us a final thought. Well. Anyway, Apple.
Surely, first of all, you've got to be aware of yourself for a conscious state. Surely, and to do so, do you not need energy? Now, if a robot is alive forever, where is that energy coming from?
It's Mamading, I think, sorted that out, because that's the moon thing,
where,
right?
once their energy has gone, does it go? There's got to be some kind of domino effect here. It can't just be a constant, because a constant is nothing, it's no life. So how could a robot feed that? It couldn't be, I mean, you know...
What do you mean by that? Like, so it's taking energy from the moon? We've established that.
You'd have to for a robot to be alive forever, you'd have to have energy from somewhere.
With the moon, the sun.
But there's that's the moon. The sun's disappearing.
Another sun. I don't know.
You have to go in cycles. Nothing is forever. No.
I don't know if when you said forever, do you mean flippantly, like as in a long time, or forever? But can I just hear it from Mamading, because he had his hand up, and then we'll come over to Mikey.
Yeah. So one key thing there, which is what you're alluding to, is that however immortal these new entities may be, they still need a certain infrastructure in order to be able to survive and maintain themselves. They need energy, they need data, they need other resources. So, you know, they will have their own needs, which means they can come to conflict with each other, they can come to conflict with humanity. So this is something that needs to be taken into account as well.
So there could be competition even if they are made to be benevolent. Mikey?
My problem, I don't think it sounds very satisfying to me, this singularity, because I think humans need to feel like they're contributing, they're doing something, making something, and if it's all in charge of by robots, we're going to feel very dissatisfied, I think.
Okay, interesting. What about any...
Well, we're not going to be feeling dissatisfied if we all sit down and meditate every now and then. First of all,
are the robots going to make us do that?
No. This is not like the robots making us do anything. I'm just saying that there will be a point in time, right, where basically we have intelligent matter, and this exponentially growing every single day, every single second, and that will happen in our lifetime. If you're lucky to live up to 80, you're going to see this happening right like in front of your eyes. But the point here is that it's not going to be a Terminator scenario simply because Terminator is a movie, and it's a Hollywood movie, and movies need to have black and white, and, you know, a villain and a hero, and in reality it's not like that. So
does that mean we're going to get some good robots and some bad robots, and in between, like the full shades of grey that you get?
Well, yeah, possibly. But the point being is that if a robot is clever enough, and in order for it to be a robot, it needs to be clever enough, right? It will have already calculated that basically it's into its own best interest to keep Earth alive, keep humans alive. There is no reason why it should go.
Would robots need us around? Why would robots care? What do you guys reckon? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this brings me to the point that how do we use technology? Because obviously robots and IA is just you know, kind of an evolution of technology. And I think being here in Hackstock, which is a festival that it uses technology in many different senses in a very creative way, it makes me question again, like, yeah, the use of technology as artists, as humans, as users. And I think that's something to be discussing more. How do we contribute to the evolution of the technology as a medium? But yeah, I think I feel that we will be related to that, to the action of, you know, of the technology. Basically, the humans, we are the creators, really. And yeah, I kind of wanted to shift it a bit to that direction.
Okay, so kind of what are the applications of this? We're talking about it in the abstract, but let's bring it down to a slightly more real level.
around and I'm like, I just look around and I think, this is where we are now. We are building our own little robots, our own little experiences that are like, some of them they are intelligent already because they react depending on how you interact with them.
Yeah.
And that's for me, this is one of the questions that I'm, as an artist that work with technology, I'm questioning myself, and I would love to hear everyone's point more in the now rather than.
Well, let's start with Mamading.
Okay. So I think one thing we need to talk about here, and I'm afraid it touches upon the P word, the political economy of automation.
It's all right, he's on his phone, he doesn't care.
The political economy of automation.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, technology is being dominated by a few major corporations who are reaping the benefits of the wealth generated by technology. And as the robots emerge and as AI emerges, that will be owned by a few companies who will gain all the wealth generated from these things. And at the same time, those very same technologies are going to put a lot of people out of jobs. And then those people aren't going to have incomes. So we're going to have very serious conversations about how the wealth that is actually being generated through this automation is actually shared and redistributed or taxed, if we need to have conversation.
Give us a final thought.
Bill Gates himself suggested that we should have a robot tax.
Okay, but I mean, doesn't this bring us back to the idea of like what we replace money with, and kind of Apple touched on it with a different kind of thing, or like a resource-based economy? You look like you were about to stand up and run away. Do you want to give us a final thought before you go?
Yeah, the reason I'm running away is because I really want to try the HoloLens, and it's running out in like an hour.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but I really appreciate everybody's thoughts. Last thing I want to say is that of course it's up to us, like what we do, but also remember that every little startup that starts a new venture. I mean, I don't want to be cynical, but people hoping to be bought by Facebook or Google or something. So it's not like these artistic things we're seeing around are going to stay independent for a while. Like 2-3 years from now, they're going to sell like that because people like to have $1 billion. But anyway, that's my point.
Do you reckon everyone sells out?
The musicians of Krautwerk yesterday, Ebenhard and Harold were saying, if you're commercially successful, you need to ask the question, what are you doing wrong? and I would just like to repeat that today.
Yeah, no, artistic integrity overall, Obviously, we all want to evolve, we all want to grow, but that's very important. Just following your point, which I totally agree, and it is very sad that technology is very classist in a way, because obviously you need the money, you need the resources to actually, to develop things, and there's definitely one side of the development of the technology industry that is there and is definitely owned by only a few ones. But for me, the movement of hackers, which, we are today at Hackstock, and I think that's something for me have really changed my career and my business, for example. Before, I've been using a technology now that before a few years back, like 10 years back, it was only used by like big theaters. I could not have access to it. But then since like the technology, it's just like the hardware, let's say, became cheaper, and then the hackers took over. And then, so that means I think everything can be hacked. And although, the big ones, they will, play the big game and like try to, just like obviously own as much as they can. There will be still this hacking movement where you can really take and just like making your own. And it would be a small movement in comparison of the big one, but still I think it could make a difference.
But you're kind of saying that sort of innovation is actually carried forward by the underdogs, not by the big players. They're just buying the innovators.
Of course. And don't get me wrong, I'm an artist that I work in the commercial industry, but I think it's important to know that these like hacking systems, they do exist, and that's our way, to be more free and to kind of evolve and not be dependent on the big,
so you reckon Azure was being a bit flippant, saying that everyone kind of sells out, and actually it's okay. I'll come to Mikey in a sec, and Mamading.
I mean, I'm a hacker myself. I've done my share of hacking software and money and political systems and social systems and so forth. I hack everything. I mean, my own tagline a few years ago was "Hack the Planet." So that's kind of who I am. It's worth noting, AlphaGo, that software which has been now an AI as a champion at Go, the Go game. Okay. That was created by a London startup called DeepMind, which then became part of Google. So there's a case in point there of how some of the most innovative stuff is developed outside the big corporations, but can wind up inside them anyway. They get acquired.
Sure. I mean, but I think as you were suggesting that everyone sells out, you're suggesting not everyone does, and actually the real innovators keep it real.
Well, we try to, yeah. But obviously, I think it's good that when you say that it's also important to change things from the inside, and sometimes, you let them to buy you whatever you want them to buy you, and then just like play it from the inside. So it's not. I don't think it will have to be in a really rigid. I don't believe in a really rigid system of like you cannot really work with the big corporation. We just need to take them to where the direction we want to take them to.
Okay. So, Mikey?
I kind of agree with
everything. You want to say something?
It's okay. No, go for it.
I just think, in terms of, we talk about evolution and progress and technology, but the actual company structure is a very ancient now structure. It's a structure originally from exploring, from colonialist times, and that has not really, in terms of a legal entity, really evolved that much. So I think that is something that really, we talked about all these things, but we haven't really talked about how corporations are going to be in the future, and these big businesses, surely they can grow and develop and be a little bit more, relevant to the modern day.
Is this where space lawyers come in? They've got to look ahead and.
This is actually something I have actually tried hacking on in the past. Amongst other things, I actually wrote code to sort of hack PDFs from Company's House, so I can actually automatically fill in the forms with code to create companies automatically and update Company's House automatically. So
backtracks it. What?
Okay, so the whole point here is basically we can start to create new kinds of companies and corporations that use existing legal entities as a shell, but how they operate on the inside can be radically different. And this is where technologies like the blockchain can make a huge difference. We can create whole new kinds of cooperatives and other kinds of organizations that transcend the current shareholder setup.
Okay. I'm intrigued to see what the purpose of that would be. So
we were talking at my place the other day about the idea of de-evolution and that being like the next kind of step in I maybe have to try and explain that, but like obviously as we are now, like the sort of idea of dominant players kind of breaking down so that there are many, exactly what you're talking about, I think. The idea of creating new companies, new corporations and new structures that exist in an underground way, which is what you're talking about as well, with artists hacking things and all sorts of stuff like that kind of going on. That on the groundwork, I think on the sort of base level, I think a lot of people, young people and older people, are feeling incredibly disenfranchised. Like we don't know what to do. We don't know who to vote for. We've got no idea what's going on. But we do know that we believe in sort of communicating, supporting, and helping one another somehow. How do we do that? So everyone's basically doing grassroots, and so if we can. It's like that idea of bringing it back to the local and the underground, whilst at the same time still somehow keeping the globalization. I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? With the innovation, globalization, we're all for this, and at the same time also there's this kind of need or want for a local...
So you kind of want to break it all down, start from scratch, but without disrupting too much so that everything still carries on working.
This is highly illegal, but I would really like to... I'd like to hack the election. Would it be possible? Because, politics has become such a game and such a manipulated thing. It's a time the hackers got involved and actually started manipulating it themselves. Is it possible to register an extra 1 million people in the key constituencies to actually hack that system? Is it possible to do that? And I would very much. I know that it's probably a bad thing, but even if it just caused a more considered rerun of the election, I think it would politically it would be a very good idea.
Well, just to mix it up a bit, just.
Yeah, well, I think people get it the wrong way. Like it's not about politics. The thing is basically people think, oh, that we're gonna choose that person. It's not about who you choose. It's if they like think about it. People think, oh yeah, I'm gonna choose that person, or there is no perfect, there's no good. So people end up choosing between worse, bad and the worst. So this is it, and we need to realize this is, I was reading that book by Jim Rohn, and he said it's not about
who?
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn.
Yeah, he's actually a life coach, and what he said it's not about what happens, it's about what you do about what happens. Okay, so there's big things.
Make the best of your situation.
100%, because a lot of people, my father he's into politics a lot, and he was in prison for 7 years. Okay, but he was from Iran, Persia, and what he did, he was keep telling me, I see them, like my family, they usually gather around in circles, especially after food, when they're all full, right? And they start talking about politics, and I tell them, look, it's not about that, like, you guys, we need to, I believe we just need to focus more on ourselves, to develop ourselves in a better way, because that's it, I'm not saying it's becoming selfish, but I'm saying, but think of it in a bigger way, so yeah, that's what I think,
So kind of, Mike, you should just don't worry, just be happy, you're still going to be able to drink the water,
well, but that's and that's and I think that's a really good way of starting changing the world. The changing the world starts with changing yourself, and you will, being in the way, you're gonna be an example. Then you will provoke those changes. So, so I think it's a beautiful way of starting. But yeah, coming back to what Afra was saying, I think it's definitely a controversial there, and especially as someone that I'm part of a kind of the art underground scene in London. But then at the same time, you're gonna grow up as a startup, and we have all of these things of how, and I think most of the people that are exhibiting here, they probably found themselves in the same situation. How do you keep true to yourself and your values, and still kind of being part of this, the bigger picture, and it's obviously, it's a challenge, and it is all about the balance, and a bit of both probably will work, no?
Okay, I'm just going to get a final thought from Mamadine, because it looks like he's about to escape. In fact, what time is it? It's about... It feels like 5:30. Well, it's not quite 5:30. Never mind. Karen, we're going to have well, we'll start to wrap it up. Wait, don't run away. We're going to kind of do a round of sort of final thoughts and just see what everyone's conclusions and attitudes are from the conversation we've had. See if anyone's learned anything, anyone's happier, sadder, and so on. Mamadine, what's your final thought of the session?
Okay, my final thought is that we all have a voice. Therefore, we all have an ability to contribute and help shape culture. So it's up to us what kind of culture we have and what kind of culture we're creating, and how that impacts on economics and how that impacts on politics. And that's how we create the change we want to see.
Okay. And Seb's?
Final thoughts on
it all.
Okay, I'll go. I want to hear everyone's final thoughts.
You want to hear everyone's first? Okay. No final thoughts? Jerry, you must have a final thought. Or words of wisdom.
Well, words of wisdom. We have a continuing line of learning more and more and more, understanding about ourselves, our planet, and expanding that knowledge out into the universe, and that is going to continue. Whether it leads to robots, or I wouldn't say initially robots, but say computer systems that are self-aware, that will be a quite amazing step forward. I just remind people about Asimov's laws of robotics. First law says a robot may not harm a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. and that takes out all the Terminator films and lots of others with it. It's unlikely we're going to deliberately build self-aware robots and tell them go and kill us.
On the US military doing that right now.
Well, I know. I've always said, you look at how much gets spent on space, and really it's a tiny amount. It really, really is. You compare that with defence budgets, which are up like that, and I've always said how much better it would be if we could just get along with each other, and if we didn't have to spend all that much time, energy, money and other resources on fighting each other. We could put that to more peaceful and more productive uses. Then, oh my God, how much further advanced could we be than we are now?
I think contemporary politicians would call you a dangerous rebel with that kind of line of thinking. Peace, honestly.
I'm looking forward to the moment when we have self-aware human beings.
Nice. Afra.
My final thought is to do with being an artist and feeling like I think that although the idea that art can just totally change the world is sort of a bit outdated, I think we can definitely sort of come up with different ideas and sort of demonstrate sort of new ways of using technology to hopefully to try and sort of change people's perception on what it could be used for, or how we can use it to live in different ways, or how we can think about the climate and all those kind of things. I'm just going to be hosting an event. Going to do a little plug.
Yeah,
why
go
not?
for it. Plug away. Plug away.
So Maria and I run Flux, which is a media artist peer networking group, and I'm curating our next Talks event, which is on the 31st of May, about public media art, and it's to do with how you can take artwork and then take it out into the
This is very us, actually. So we might
environmental issues.
We might see you there.
And artists that deal with that, basically. So
cool.
that's what I'm interested in. How art can be something that can sort of lead the way for other places to follow, basically.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Might see you there.
Yes, please come to Flux. All artists welcome. Just as a final thought. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll pass it around. Yeah.
Wonderful. So yeah, I think my final thought it is let's make efforts to find inner peace, because I think we won't fight really as much with each other if we were in peace with ourselves. So that's shout out for that, as well as just being creative. Create whatever you feel, whatever you need. Create and share. I think all these problems and issues for the future, I think they will be solved with a creative mind. So let's create and share. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Brian, do you have final thoughts? Also, can we take a photo of this one as well? This is
my only thought is just don't think, do it.
Apple, while Rick's photographing this, do you want to give us a final thought?
Final thought, I think I'll go back to the point I made before, is being aware of the present before thinking into the future.
Mindfulness. And Sebs, do you want to finish us off?
Wrap it up.
Oh, actually, I'll wrap it off with this.
Drop the mic, yeah? So yeah, I think as everyone said, it's not about changing the world. It's about changing ourselves as an individual, because that has the most effect. That's exactly what you said, And also, as sorry, what was your name again?
Brian.
Brian. As Brian said, just do it. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you ever so much. So this has been Talkaoke. I've been Rowan. We are at the Imperial Festival tomorrow, if anyone wants to come and have a look. Imperial Festival is, there's a lot of similarity with this, but a few different things as well, but it should be fun. So that's in South Kensington. And hopefully we'll see you there, come rain or shine. Enjoy the rest of Hackstock. We're going to wrap up now, and make sure you have a go at space, or was it? It was your friend, wasn't it? He wanted to look at space in virtual reality. Yeah. Anyway, we'll go and have a look at space in virtual reality. Let's see if we get the effect that Mamading was talking about, and get that perspective on the Earth. All right, goodbye, everybody.